This is the Château at Rochefort-en-Terre, a beautiful town in the centre of Brittany, northwest France. It's a place that means a huge amount to me. Apart from the sheer beauty of it, this is the point where my American cousins and the British cousins and everyone, we met here many, many times. It was the home of the artists Alfred and Trafford Klots. Trafford married my cousin Isabel. The family originated from, well, they lived in Baltimore, but they originated from the southern states. And I used to come here as a child. Indeed, my parents honeymooned here, and I'm the result of that. And we used to stay in these wonderful rooms. And now it's owned by the village, or the town, and people are free to roam here, and that's great. Everybody can come up here and enjoy it. I want to take us over to this little area, which I remember as a kid was covered in ivy, this well here. And come with me, and I'll just show you a little place around here. So on this ledge here would be 11 years old me with my sketch pad looking at the chateau. And the artist Trafford, who was a wonderful, colourful figure and a great artist. We're going to go in a second into his studio and see some of his work. But I didn't tell him that I was interested in sketching. And I was out here just sketching the chateau one day. I still got it. I gave it to my brother for his 9th birthday, rather. And I was sketching away, and Trafford came out, and he put down his palette and his paints, and he came over to where I was sat here at this well. And he had a look at what I was doing, and he was so encouraging, and he pointed out the good things. You know, I think it was a pretty average sketch, really, but he pointed out the good things and how I got the perspective right and how I'd created the spirit of this wonderful house. And later on, he went to my parents and said, "That boy's got something, you know. You want to make sure that he's taught at school." And that was the first example, I think, of somebody exploring my own creativity, which was natural to me, and making something more of it. And that idea's never left me. I think it's so important that creativity is grown in people, and that's what we do at Sound Vision. We create safe, non-judgmental spaces for people to grow their creativity, whether that's in audio or radio or music. And if you give them a space to do that, that's going to put them in a better place. That's going to increase their opportunities to do more with their lives, to be self-fulfilled, and to have better well-being. So I think, and I like to think, because I'm kind of a romantic view of the world, that what I do for a living now in starting Sound Vision, which is very much a growing charity, starts for me on these steps here, as a little boy sketching out, being encouraged by this person who's, I think as an artist, probably quite forgotten now, but at the time was well known. And for me, will live forever in my heart as a great painter and a great encourager. And on that note, come on, let's go into a studio. We're not really supposed to be doing this, but don't tell anyone. We'll go and have a look. Wow, it really is amazing to be in here. It's so many decades since, I'm not even sure I've ever came in here, but I used to come to this door I've just come through from the yard outside, and I'd see Trafford painting over here. And you know what? This painting up here is exactly what he saw as an artist, and that is how he's left it for us to enjoy many years after his passing. So that painting was painted in this studio. This is his father's work. And I'm really pleased to see these 4 paintings, which used to be in the dining room in the chateau. And the chateau changed hands. I wondered what had happened to them. So coming into Trafford's studio today to see them is absolutely amazing. And so I can visualize him standing here in his Breton smock with the palette in one hand and the brush in the other, putting these wonderful flourishes. Look at the movement. Look at the movement in his work, the vibrancy of it. And that is what influenced me so much as a young sketcher and painter. myself. And so for me, my life of creativity really starts in this place, and the memory of this wonderful artist who was a very strong influence on us all as a family. And he inherited the castle, or the chateau, from his father, who'd come over here in the early part of the 20th century to kind of get the European commissions. He was an artist as well, so absolutely awesome to be standing in here today. And I'm joined by my friend Lisa, who knows a little bit about all this. And Lisa, you're from America yourself, so you've got a direct connection to the Klots.
Yes, I'm from America, and my mom was Trafford's cousin, and I started coming here as a 16-year-old. Wanted to learn French better, and my parents said, "Oh, let's send her to the Klotses and find a nice family for me to spend the summer with." And I've been coming ever since, and now live in Rochefort, and adore coming back to this chateau as a touchstone, really.
Well, tell me about that relationship between America and the town of Rochefort, because the Klots were American, and I think I just touched on it a moment ago. They were artists, they would come over here, they needed a base to get their kind of their summer commissions, as it were, and then they go back home to Baltimore to get the winter commissions stateside. Is that about right?
That is about right. That was certainly what Trafford did, and actually Alfred spent a lot more time here when he was renovating what was the old farm buildings of the medieval castle into his own castle, and he would go back to Baltimore and Chicago and Cincinnati to paint. Actually, you can see up there one of the beautiful ladies. He loved painting the wives of wealthy Americans, and actually did quite well painting them. And then he'd come back here to Rochefort, really creating, his greatest creation here was the chateau, which he took pieces from another chateau that was being razed. He found out about it being knocked down. The owners didn't want to pay the taxes anymore, so he bought the chateau and brought all the architectural elements inside and out to create his, my husband and I, Mark, we call it his painting in stone.
Well, it is a tremendous work of art, and one of resurrection, because pretty well all the castles in France were taken down, or their defensive capacity was removed following the French Revolution, so that they couldn't be places of defense against the government going forward. This is the 20th century chateau, and one that was, built out of the stable block, but fantastic. What a legacy they've left.
Oh, it's incredible. And actually, so Trafford, the son, did go back and forth painting in America, painted quite a few well-known people, and then painting here in France. And then when he died in 1976, his widow, Isabel Klots, started with the Maryland Institute of Art. She started a program for professional artists to come over in the summer and paint, live at the chateau and paint. And it was very successful. And actually, since she has passed away, the program is now in another village, still exists in another village in Brittany, where professional artists are coming over.
So one of the reasons why this place means so much to me, it is that epicenter for me of so many strands of where I come from: Scotland, England, Britain, America, and France. It all comes together at Rochefort. And it's wonderful, 100 years after the family developed this as a chateau, that those American ties continue.
I think it's fantastic. It's why we live in this village, and we are now actually, speaking of being on film, we are creating a film about Alfred and Trafford Klots and their wives, Agnes and Isabel, and what they invested as Americans in this village and in France. Very involved with helping France in World War I and then World War II as well, and then onward. And I think it's a really important link that shouldn't be forgotten in this village, especially.
Well, that's fantastic to know that you're making a film. Do keep us posted on that. And the next time we meet, let's flick the old flicker on and we'll watch it and enjoy it together. In the meantime, you touched on the World Wars, and the Rochefort had a big part to play in that. Now, I want to go with you down into the town. We're going to tell a couple of those stories in a place that's rather special to me.
Okay.
Well, we've now come down into the centre of the town of Rochefort, and here's that special place, special to me, the Café Breton. Come in, and I'm going to show you some rather fun stuff. I used to come in here when I was a kid, coming down after dinner at the chateau with my friends and enjoying a late evening drink in here. And I used to look at these murals. Have a look at these murals up here. And this very much ties in with the story of Rochefort. These are done by people coming over from America, the artists we were talking about. And sometimes they couldn't afford their board and lodging, and so they would paint these scenes here. And look at this one over here. It's a little bit fruity. So we've got a lady rejecting the amours and the advances of what looks like a soldier. So quite a bit of fun. Anyway, a few years ago, many decades ago, I came in here with my friend Hugh, and the bar was lined up this way. And they had all the different drinks, a bit like they've got over there now. They had all the different drinks. And over a successive of about 4 or 5 nights, we had a little, as the Scottish would say, had a little nippy sweetie of each one. And we were talking here, and a lovely local French lady came over and said, "Are you English? And can we practice? Can I practice my English on you?" We went, yeah, that's a pretty good plan. And there was friendships formed for many years to come. Everything about this place is about bringing people together. And that's an ethos I can really heartily endorse. Now, let's come back outside and we'll go and find Lisa again. I'm going to ask her a few things. So coming away from the Café Bretonnet, actually, in this side of it, it's all apparently part of the same business. Let's find out more. Come this way and we'll find a cup. I love the fact that it's a cup of local Breton cider. And once again joined by Lisa, your good health.
To your health too. À ta santé.
Tell us about this place.
This place, this Café Breton, was owned by, well, actually Alfred Klots bought it for his son Trafford for his 21st birthday. And he had actually bought the cafe bar across the place, but this was way more beautiful. And he wanted to preserve the architecture of it. And oops, the wasp. And he had made these wonderful murals of a Breton wedding that he painted with his son Trafford, and they installed them in the Café Breton. And
So we were just looking at those. I thought those were done by the Klots themselves, were
by
they?
both Alfred and Trafford together.
And there's a wonderful one, always got an eye for the naughty.
Yes.
And there's a rather fruity one of the Lady of the Night rejecting the amours of the military young fellow.
This is the marriage, the wedding couple. And actually on the big one where the guy is playing the accordion up on the barrel, actually every character in the mural is a local person. And Alfred would have them come up to his studio in their Breton dress, and he painted them. And he also painted himself and his son Trafford into the mural.
So the story I was telling, and I got slightly wrong, was that sometimes that the artists would come, but they wouldn't necessarily be able to afford their board and lodging. Did that actually happen? Did anyone leave their art instead of paying their bill?
Well, that was at the hotel next door, what was called Hotel Le Cadre, which then became the Pelican. And actually Alfred stayed there the first year he was here, and there were lots of artists who couldn't pay their board, and they would paint the doors or paint the wallboards. And there are still 6 of them left that are in the chateau right now.
So one of the things I've always assumed in coming here as a younger person till, over the years, is that because of this influence of the artists and the American artists, as we were saying earlier, coming to this day, has always had an effect on the kind of magic of this town. It seems to present itself in a more vibrant, energetic, creative and colourful way than perhaps the average French town. Is that a kind of theory you could run with?
I think I'll run with it, because actually Alfred, not only did they have artists, but Alfred thought that on the color theme, Alfred said, oh, it's a beautiful village, lovely medieval buildings, but sometimes the stone can be a little bit sad and dour. So he started this village, well, it was a flowered window contest. And the villagers, he encouraged the villagers to put window boxes with pink geraniums in them. And everybody got into it. And he actually had greenhouses at the chateau where he grew the geraniums for many people who were too poor to do that kind of thing. And that's how this village became so colorful in one sense.
And you were telling me earlier that tourism has really increased hugely in recent years, I suppose, since the pandemic kept us all at home.
It's increased actually especially since this village won the contest for the preferred village contest in France in 2016. And I think we went from, I don't know how many thousand to about 400,000 a year. Huge number of people.
Well, it's wonderful for me as this place that means so much to me to see it teeming, to see it thriving, and to end my Dom's video for this week, Dom's diary for this week. We're going to go down into the street and have a little think about what was going on here in Liberation in 1944. Thank you, Lisa, by the way. Oh, I'll tell you what we should do is toast to the Klots and to artists the world over.
Exactly.
To which we'll add creative all sorts, really, because that includes me. Come down with me to the street. Well, coming away from the steps of the Café Breton, down into the main street, mercifully free of cars these days. That wouldn't have been the case when I first came here. Just a lot of people walking up and down, enjoying the shops, enjoying the wonderful hospitality. Crepes, of course, in Brittany are massively famous. So let's think about what happened, because Rochefort was under the occupation and the Allies invaded Normandy, of course, in 1944. Now, what happened was, as the enemy invaded France originally, Trafford, who was an American citizen, enlisted with the Canadian army because they didn't know what the Americans were going to do. So he enlisted in the Canadian army, obviously then trained over in the UK, rejoined the Americans when they entered the war, and invaded with the Normandy landings. Trafford was given special dispensation by his commanding officer to take a detour off into Brittany, and him and his troops liberated this town in June 1944. And what an incredible thing that would have been, the town under occupation for all those years. And Trafford, there's wonderful photographs, Trafford coming along and is looking like the old-time American GI with his cocked hat and leather jacket, sitting on the back of a jeep, being greeted by the townsfolk, and he would have known them all and they would have known him so well. And French people looked like French people in those days, with the women in traditional Breton dresses and costumes, and the men in their berets and pencil moustaches and stripy tops. And no doubt the odd onion was around as well, and they would greet the liberating Allies. And I love the idea that they went all the way up to the chateau, dug up the wine, and had themselves a really good time. What a fantastic way of ending this edition of Dom's Diary, on the thought that the world is a better place when we're all together. And that was the spirit that they generated after 5 years of ghastly war. And that is the spirit I think we could all do with remembering now.